Dear Lord, thank you for the city in which we live and all the facilities it offers, schools, shops and hospital. Thank you for the well-known residents and the quiet ones too, who by their jobs or voluntary work help to make our city a good place to live in. We pray for those gathered here today who serve as councillors. May we remember Councillor Jacob Patel, who's recuperating at home, and Councillor Freddie Bailey's son, who is in hospital. May they be thoughtful and wise in their decisions and open in their approach to changing conditions. We pray for the council employees. May their skills and experience be respected by elected councillors and their dealings with the public be marked by helpfulness, courtesy and tact. We pray for forgiveness for the times when we have not done as well as we could through personal ambition and the like. We pray for peace and security in all the wards that make up our city. Amen.
Mayor's announcements. There are no plans for a fire alarm test. If you hear the alarm, please leave the building by the nearest exit. Please ensure mobile phones are switched off or on silent. Restrooms are located on all floors, but please ask a member of staff. Should you read? I only need to read this out if we've got visitors. I don't think we have any. Oh, sorry. We haven't. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and will eventually be loaded onto the council's YouTube channel. Can I please remind all members that whilst we can disagree politically, I'm apolitical, but please remain respectful to each other whilst dealing with council business. Now, members of the public, members and officers, you are reminded that under the Openness of Local Government Bodies Regulations 2014, the press and public may film, audio record, photograph and use social media whilst the meeting is in progress for Part A items only. And as long as no disruption is caused to the meeting, anyone filming is asked to focus their attention on elected members rather than other visitors. Now, it was a privilege for me as Mayor to lead the city's commemoration of Holocaust Memorial Day, which was particularly significant this year as we mark 80 years since the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau and 30 years since the genocide in Bosnia. The theme of this year's Holocaust Day is For a Better Future. Can I thank all those who were able to attend the service at St George's Church? And it was particularly nice to have representation from the young people of our city giving readings at the service. They were from the Eden School off London Road. Yeah. We will shortly observe a minute's silence too, as we continue to reflect upon all those who lost their lives in the Holocaust and in genocide since. I know that collectively we will all seek to contribute and work towards that better future. It is now my sad duty to advise of the death of a colleague following a short illness over Christmas. Jenny Lawton worked in the Revenue and Benefits Shared Service based at Lancaster and had worked for Lancaster and Preston for 34 years. Jenny was a kind-hearted and genuine person who would go out of her way to help others. She played for the Salvation Army Band in Lancaster and was a very popular member of staff who will be missed by all who knew her. I send my sincere condolences to Jenny's family and friends. Can I now ask you to stand as a mark of respect for our colleague? Thank you. Thank you, everyone. As the Reverend mentioned, I would also like to send our collective best wishes to Councillor Patel, who is recovering from a recent fall. And I'd like to offer my congratulations to Councillor Bailey on the birth of his second child. Finally, the main event, a reminder that my mayoral charity bash will take place in the Gill Lounge on Saturday the 22nd of February. Tickets are available and are excellent value, even if you don't come, with all proceeds going to my mayoral charities. We've got bands, magicians, poets, all sorts booked. It'll be a good night. Now, depending on how we progress today, I may adjourn to take a short comfort break. So it's down to you guys. We will see how we proceed. Item 2. Are there any declarations of interests? Okay, thank you. Item 3, minutes of the last meeting. Are members happy that I signed the minutes as a correct record? Thank you. Item 4 is questions from members of the public, but none have been submitted to this meeting. Item 5 is questions of members of chairs and committee, members of chairs of committees and representatives of outside bodies. We'll take this is questions to cabinet members, chairs of cabinets, committees and representatives of outside bodies. Members are entitled to ask a question of any cabinet member or chair of a committee within their portfolio or terms of reference, and only one supplementary question may be asked, provided it is relevant to the original question. We haven't received any written notifications for questions for members appointed to serve on outside bodies. If anyone has any questions to ask on the information items on the agenda, including the special urgency decisions, they should do so at this point, as another opportunity will not be given when we reach those items. Councillor Hull, do you have a question, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is to the leader of the council, Councillor Matthew Brown, and could I ask the leader again what actions the council is taking to ensure that government plans for a new hospital remain within the local authority area and we get the best deal for the people of Preston?
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Hull, for the question. Obviously, there was a similar question last council, but there has been some developments, and I feel that this council must be aware of where we are with it. Obviously, we are a little disappointed that government have announced there'll be a substantial delay in the building of a new hospital. So within current plans, it's going to begin construction between 2037 and 2039. However, we are very keen, and I've been working with Councillor Coupland very closely, and we've met with NHS officials and others, that this hospital has to be within the Preston local authority boundary. We have significant challenges in our less well-off communities. We've got a very diverse population who disproportionately often suffer with health issues, a larger disabled population, and it makes no sense whatsoever not having the hospital within the local authority boundary. So obviously we're going to continue lobbying and seeking whatever influence we can to make sure the hospital remains within Preston through, we hope, will be a rebuild on the existing Royal Preston Hospital site. But in the meantime, we're going to seek the provision of a substantial city centre health hub for Preston, which would mean several services go onto our high streets, making it more accessible for our residents. So this council will be fighting tooth and nail, Zaffa and myself and the rest of my colleagues, to make sure that the hospital in Preston does remain in Preston. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Do you have a supplementary? Thank you. Councillor Thompson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is to Councillor Freddie Bailey. Grooming gangs have been in the news recently, as you may well be aware, and Preston was actually named as one of those places where this stuff may go on. Can I ask you, would you support a national inquiry into grooming gangs? And can you assure us that there's no such activity going on in Preston as far as you know?
Yeah, I'm well aware it's obviously been in the news a lot recently. To be honest, I don't think my opinion is really relevant in terms of whether there should be a national inquiry or not, because I do believe that actually whether there should be a national inquiry or not should be actually victim-led. To be honest, I think obviously there's been a lot of local inquiries in the places where these obviously horrific crimes have taken place, and obviously asking those victims to take part in a national inquiry again, which might prolong that, I think just uncovers a lot of, sorry, not uncovers, I think it just makes them go through that trauma that they've already gone through from the internal inquiries, the local inquiries they've already gone through. I know when, I don't want to play party politics with it, but I know that when it was it 2020, 2021, when a lot of the local inquiries finished, which was like a 7-year long inquiry, a lot of the actions hadn't been implemented by government. And I know what they need to do is they need to take the actions of those inquiries first. So in terms of what we're doing in Preston, I don't really want to comment on whether there should be a national inquiry or not. I think it should be victim-led. I don't think it should be up to me to say anything about that. And regarding obviously criticism as well, obviously it's been rife with social media, hasn't it, regarding X and stuff, and about there's been cover-ups and stuff and accusing people of horrific things. You know, I've obviously received a fair amount of abuse on social media. But what I can seek, well, give you assurances is that we don't know about any of these crimes, and we are absolutely not covering any of them up at all. And obviously, that would never, ever be the case at all. I think that's all I want to say on the matter. Thank you.
You have a supplementary question?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Right. The other question is, do you know that we did have an inquiry, the Crime and Disorder Committee had an inquiry a few years ago. Were you aware that we had that inquiry? And did you realise that the police said they couldn't get any actual intelligence from certain places, so they weren't sure what was going on? I don't know whether you're aware of that.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of it. I can obviously now look into it, but yeah, I wasn't aware of that.
Thank you. Councillor Aikmal, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's question to Councillor Wise. Well, could you please give us an update on the cinema complex that's recently completed? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. The grand opening of Animate takes place on the 20th of February. I visited the premises recently along with other colleagues and was very impressed by what I saw. And I can inform you of the tenants who've signed up already and when they're opening. So Arc Cinema, which has 8 screens, opens to the public on the 21st of February. 2 of the screens have Hypersense and Dolby Atmos sound, 4K laser generation and giant screens to pull one right into the heart of the action. The cinema will also offer free parking. I have to say the seats in the cinema are very comfortable, including being reclining. So anybody that visited will have seen those. Hollywood Bowl with 16 lanes opens in March. The Mad Giant Food Hall will be opening in late April. The Cafe Bar Argento Lounge opens on the 5th of February, so really soon. Taco Bell will open before the 20th of February. Ask Italian, the date still to be disclosed, and Cosmo will open in May. I've had discussions with a director of the Arc Cinema about it becoming a cinema of sanctuary, and further discussions will be taking place about this. The construction process has been a great success, being on budget and on time, and the tenant sign-up has exceeded projections with only one unit remaining to be filled. We've had regular updates on social value from the Eric Wright Group. In terms of the Animate scheme, the hard landscaping and soft landscaping is finished. The public realm and roadworks are scheduled to be completed by the end of March. I'm sure that many of you will have seen the work being undertaken on Old Vicarage, which will provide a key route from the bus station to Animate. This is not yet finished, but will be completed soon. There remains resurfacing works to the carriageway and new lighting to be installed, which have been delayed due to temporary traffic regulation order restrictions. The widened footpaths are, however, open for public use, and there are 2 existing lighting columns which serve as a temporary measure until 6 new lighting columns are installed on the southern side of the widened footway. There'll also be gobo projector lights, don't ask me what they are, that will be installed that provide spotlight graphic imagery on the pavement to provide animation of the street. So the street is being much improved. And I did question that because I walk down it frequently at night and thinking, well, this is very well lit. And I've been reassured that that is going to be changing. So that's an update on the whole Animate. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Do you have a supplementary?
Mr. Mayor, just a quick comment. Last time I went to Cinema Val was in 80s to watch Clint Eastwood. I promised my grandchild that I'll go and watch. Certainly, it's one of the films. Thank you.
Councillor Jewell, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is to the leader. And first of all, I do just want to thank you, Matthew, for reaching out and having a very engaging discussion regarding the Foxton Centre. I know that's a subject matter we will discuss below the line later, but I do want to bring your attention to what the Reverend actually said in prayers about councillors and others respecting officers of this council. And as such, would you condemn the comments from our MP, Mark Hendrick, in his disparaging comments about this council and its staff and the fact that it doesn't really matter because it hasn't got much longer in existence?
I think we all do need to reflect on our behaviours, whoever we are within politics, and I think having a courteous, respectful conversation is a way that we should do politics. Obviously, the Foxton issue has been a very heated dynamic. We do feel we've found a position where we can all move forward on, and I obviously would plead whoever it is, whether it's MPs or councillors, have debates in a matter of respect, because I think having a go at each other is pretty exhausting and also doesn't move the situation forward.
Supplementary.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that, Matthew. And I've got to say, we have found yourself very respectful and engaging, as I said earlier. But perhaps you wouldn't mind reminding our Labour MP for Preston that actually it's the politicians who make the decisions and not the officers. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I think we can all agree that we're in charge, and obviously we fight each other during elections to actually win power to do certain things, and so it should be. And obviously, yeah, we've taken a very clear political stance on what we're doing in terms of homelessness and many other strategies, and obviously long may that continue.
Councillor Sarwar, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm aware that a PSPO report went to Cabinet yesterday. I appreciate the work that's gone into this, but I had some questions and concerns, given that my ward, St Matthew's ward, there's a lot of issues around it, social behaviour, drugs, alcohol, etc. As you have all seen in the news as well, given the horrific incident that took place on Meadow Street a few weeks ago. Given the concerns raised by my residents, can Councillor Bailey clarify how the council intends to ensure that this PSPO is not just enforced effectively, but also fairly across all the communities? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for your question. So you're right in saying that there was a report that went to Cabinet last night. regarding a 12-week consultation within the east part of Preston, obviously covering Fishwick and Frenchwood and St Matt's ward. So obviously as a council, we've been given sort of more powers to be able to deal with antisocial behavioural problems. And obviously we've implemented one in the city centre. And obviously these antisocial behaviour problems range from, you know, street abuse, shouting, aggressive begging, urinating, drinking, drug taking, and obviously other antisocial behaviour crime that sort of takes place. So we haven't received a huge amount of feedback because we only really implemented sort of over the Christmas period in the city centre. But we know that the police are absolutely on board with it. We know we're working very, very closely together. Obviously, we'll provide some feedback to councils as well if they want to hear how that's going. But the idea is that we're empowering the police to be able to enforce more methods to be able to deal with antisocial behaviour problems. And obviously, so far, as I say, in the city centre, we had some positive feedback. And obviously now, by the consultation taking place in the east side of Preston, hopefully it'll give the police more powers to be able to enforce the problems that the east side of Preston faces, which I know is quite a hotspot for crime and also a lot of antisocial behavioural problems. I also just want to thank the councillors for Fishwick and Frenchwood and also St Matt's as well for working with officers and the police to try and get this implemented as well. So hopefully we'll breathe some positive feedback, give the police more powers, and also the residents will see an actual impact on the streets. So yeah, thank you very much for your question.
You have a supplementary?
No, Mr Mayor, but I just want to also commend the Deputy Chief Exec, Sarah, and as well as Alison and Liz and other officers who have helped put this together. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Holmes, please.
Thank you. Question for Councillor Wise. Do you have any update on the levelling up funding?
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Well, this is another good story alongside Animate, because today, hot off the press, we've heard from the government that our project adjustment request has been agreed. So that is really very good news for Preston, because obviously we were taking some risks, particularly with the tram bridge, because we were saying we were going to fund that anyway, whatever happened. Well, now that will be coming from the Levelling Up Fund. So everything that we've requested has been agreed. So as I say, I'm happy to give more details if required, but obviously we've discussed this in the past when we've discussed the Levelling Up Fund. So it is a really good news story for Preston. Thank you.
You have a supplementary, Councillor Holmes? Any more questions of anyone? Right, we'll move on. Thank you. Item 6 is a report on the need for an independent audit committee member. Councillor Rawlinson, are you moving this report?
Yes, this is something that's been done for tier councils and around the country. So it's been through audit committee, it's been recommended that we do this too. I see no harm in having an independent either, especially if it's someone with the right background. The guidance that's at Appendix A, Appendices A and B, is there for information, but there's good guidance out there on this. Appendix C is an example of what the criteria might be. It's not the criteria at this point, but that will be, obviously the detail will come later. So it makes sense, I think.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for this? Thank you. Anybody wish to speak on the report? Right, all in favour, please show. Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Item 7 is the pay policy statement 2024 report. Councillor Rawlinson, are you moving this report?
Can I go home after this? It's my last one. It's not usually. I'm sure you'd let me.
So I don't really like talking about the pay of staff who are in the room with us. So I'll mention the pay ratio. This is something we have to publish since it's 2011. Mr. Eric Pickles probably should be right honourable, but I'm not sure about that. So asked us to publish the details of our chief exec's pay. It was done to try and embarrass certain councils who pay an awful lot of money to chief execs, but they are very big organisations with a lot of responsibility. So we've restructured twice since the chief management team twice at least, I think, since then, and we've kept the pay structure down as much as we can. Obviously, we still need to recruit good officers and keep good officers, and I believe we've done that, and our pay ratio is something like 6 to 1, which is incredibly good when you compare anywhere else for that matter. And it's partly due to our commitment to the living wage, of course, which we've had since 2007.
Is there a seconder, please? Thanks, councillor. Any questions? Anyone? All in favour, please show. Thank you. All against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Item 8 is a report on the Central Lancashire Local Plan 2023 to 2041. Publication version Regulation 19 consultation. An alteration to the recommended decision has also been published on this item. Councillor Brown, are you moving this?
Yeah, obviously Councillor Afzal is not here, so I'll take the item on her behalf. So members are today asked to approve the publication of the Central Lancashire Local Plan. This is known as the Regulation 19 representation period, and as you say, Mr. Mayor, we have a minor alteration which is in front of us, so obviously we'll be voting on that minor alteration as well. The Regulation 19 representation period is the last stage of a public engagement before submitting the draft to the Inspectorate for examination. This is a formal process that requires comments on the soundness and legal compliance of the plan. There's been 3 councils involved in this, so that's obviously Chorley, South Ribble and ourselves. We have a strong track record in joint working, and the plan marks the culmination of significant work by officers and members over the past 5 years. So this is something that's actually taken 5 years to bring to consideration. So it's a lot of work, and obviously, a big thanks to the members and officers concerned. The government allows councils to go ahead with plans if they are at a certain stage of plan making by the 12th of March. So this is very time sensitive. And they plan for housing within 80% of the new housing figures. For Central Lancashire overall, we are planning for no less than 80% of the new figures, and therefore it's imperative that we approve this plan today to enable the Regulation 19 consultation to start within this transition period. So obviously this is not approved today. Basically, we'll have to build more housing than than currently suggested within the plan. The government's nationally prescribed housing requirement for housing through the standard method is increased to 590 dwellings per year within Preston. However, under the transitional arrangements for the new National Planning Policy Framework, we'll be able to continue the plan with the lower requirements set out in policy HS1 on the new plan, which is 520 houses per year. And this is a key benefit of progressing with this new local plan today. The new plan provides a planning framework against which future planning decisions will be made, as well as setting out how many houses we expect to deliver during the plan period and how much land is required to support economic growth. There will be new housing delivered across 3 strategic sites in Preston. This includes the remaining land for delivery at North West Preston, alongside the delivery of the Bartle Garden Village, as well as 2 new sites, Fullwood Barracks, following disposal by the Ministry of Defence, and Preston West, which also brings a new strategic site linked to the delivery of the new Cotton Parkway railway station. We're also allocating a further 30 housing sites, 14 of which already benefit from planning permission, which are set out in policy HS4 of the plan. Employment will be delivered across 4 locations as set out in the report, and these are all existing employment areas in the extant in the extant local plan. Employment is also expected to be delivered as part of the Preston Central West strategic site. Obviously, from our administration's perspective, we are pretty happy with certain things that are in the local plan, which we think will address inequalities and problems that have taken place within our communities. One of these is houses and multiple occupation. The plan will contain a new policy on restricting HMOs, and within the area designed as a Preston urban area, the council is expanding current restrictions on permitted development rights, which prevents householders converting their homes into a HMO. On its own, this is not enough, as it simply requires them to seek planning permission for conversion. Therefore, the plan includes a restrictive policy within the same area and states that within Preston's Article 4 direction area, proposals to convert properties into HMOs or expand existing HMOs will not be permitted. So that basically means that where we have a proliferation of HMOs in the city centre, which has been a blight in many areas, through planning we can turn them down, which is going to be new power available to us. There'll also be a new plan on places of worship. This policy has been developed at the request of our council in recognition of the need to support facilities which support and serve our communities. Now, obviously, as our city expands, people have different faiths and religions, and it's right that they have access to further their religious expressions by having a right through the planning system to have a place of worship. And in terms of education, I know this is a hot topic in terms of Preston. We know the importance of education provision and the concerns communities have on the increase of new housing and the impact on school places. And through policy HC3, the local plan identifies locations in Preston for the safeguarding, expansion or provision of new education facilities. In addition, developer contributions will be expected for new development to contribute to mitigating its impact on infrastructure services and the environment, and to contribute to the requirements of the community. And we've been working closely with colleagues in LCC education throughout the preparation of the plan to ensure education needs are addressed. Planning is obviously a very strong policy instrument we can use, and there are other policies within the plan that we welcome. For instance, our affordable housing policies, which has delivered hundreds and not thousands of new affordable homes, will be reiterated within the local plan. 30% in outside the rural areas and 35% in the rural areas. Through employment and skills, we require developers to show they're using local suppliers and local labour. And the plan will also help us achieve our net zero ambitions. Following the publication of the planning white paper in December, the impacts of government reorganisation on the plan has been raised, and concerns raised about where that leaves us, because obviously it's unlikely as council exists in the next 5 years, we'll be part of a new entity somewhere. However, once adopted, the plan will remain in place until the time of the review. This is at least every 5 years, and any framework adopted will not be immediately superseded by local government reorganisation. The extant plans in place at that time means a new authority, when it's created, that the plan will remain until a new plan is developed, reflecting any changed boundaries. Previous local government reorganisation plans have allowed councils 5 years from the date of the new authority forming to prepare a new plan. We would expect similar through the changes proposed through the white paper. Abandoning this plan now would leave the council without an up-to-date planning framework for a number of years. We therefore feel it's in our best interest to continue with this plan. And after the consultation period, the local plan will come back to full council later this year. So obviously, this is a first stage of going out to consultation with this document that's taken 5 years in preparation. So I'd like to propose the decisions, which are paragraph 2.1, including the proposed amendments which have been circulated on your seats. So happy to take any questions. I'll answer them the best as I can, or facilitate a discussion, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have we got a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Wise. Are there any questions? No question. Move to the vote. All in favour, please show. Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Item 9 is a report on holiday activity and food programme, April 2025 to March 2026. The report was unavailable at the time the agenda was printed due to grant details being awaited from the County Council. Therefore, I am accepting the report as an urgent item. Councillor Khan, will you be moving this report? Oh, councillor Coupland. Crack on.
Councillor Khan can't report on everything, can she? This report seeks approval for the half holiday and activity food provision for 25-26. The new contract period is under negotiation with Lancashire County Council to run from April 25 to March 26. Previously, the HAF programme had been managed by an external agency, and the total amount of funding for 24-25 in Preston was 557,194. Due to the increase in capacity and the skills, the council can now manage and commission the HAF programme in-house. This will provide increased value for money and opportunity and will enable officers to address the current position of HAF and build on previous years with the Department of Education have confirmed the same level of funding will go to Lancashire County Council as in previous years, though we do not have confirmation of how that will be allocated to the districts. The council will manage and commission the HAF programme via a competitive grant process where officers will evaluate application forms and provide an allocating funding based on response to questions about attended outcomes using an agreed scoring criteria. There is a possibility that insignificant expression of interest are received to allocate the full amount of funding, which would mean remaining monies would be returned to Lancashire County Council. This is, however, highly unlikely as there's already an established network of providers. If council decide to refer this decision, the council would not have the time to start the contract in April, subsequently would be unable to set the funding to manage the HAF programme. It's recommended the council manage the HAF programme in-house for 2026 to provide improved value for money and opportunity for residents in Preston. Once Lancashire County Council have confirmed the funding total for Preston, the Leisure Development Officer will start the grant process and begin managing the HAF ahead of the first delivery period in April, just before Easter. In addition to this report, I have circulated this afternoon and I put it on your chairs, the venues and the key HAF programmes are being delivered in, and there's a list across Preston. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Have we got a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Wise. Thank you. Anybody wish to speak on this? All in favour, please. Sure. Thank you, councillors. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Carried, yeah. Item 10 is a notification of changes to the membership of committees. Are there any changes to be reported? Councillor Potter, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Councillor Kulbaki and Councillor Peake will be replacing Councillor Gregg and myself on crime and disorder.
Any others? Item 11 is a notice of motion submitted by Councillor Saxena. Bus services in Preston.
Thank you, Mr.
Before, hold it, Councillor Saxena. I understand that the amendment proposed by Councillor Duke has been accepted by Councillor Saxena as an addition to his motion. Right, thank you. Councillor Saxena.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was actually going to say that anyway, but
okay. I jumped the gun. I do apologise, Councillor Saxena.
Right. Yes, I'm quite happy with the amendment. I did in the original motion referred to the Parliament relating to deprived areas. Because I do seem to feel the pinch, particularly where the cuts occur to services, where the lack of punctuality occurs as well. But I'm quite happy to universalise it, if you like, on the way that Councillor has suggested. So, as far as I'm concerned, it's effectively a substantive now. Now, the reason why I brought this notice of motion in is because it's been going on and on now for months, if not years. The bus services in Preston just do not seem to have the show that what's on the packet is what's actually inside the product. We're getting timetables produced all the time, and these timetables keep getting amended. But even the amended timetables are not being adhered to. We're finding that buses are late, are being cancelled, are being held up, and various other things. And it's just becoming ridiculous. There are people in my ward who have come to me and said, what can we do about it? There are some powers which are now available, and they are referred to in this notice of motion, which, if we were to adopt, would certainly, they couldn't make it any worse. And I suspect that there will, and I think the leader intends to speak on this because he's aware of some that might well enhance it very considerably. There are people in Preston who can't get to work on time, or having to wait for. I have one constituent who works in a solicitor's office in Preston. She finishes at 5 o'clock. There's supposed to be a bus to home at 5:05. There are then buses every 20 minutes. After that, she once, quite recently, was waiting for a bus. It never turned up. The next one didn't turn up. The one after that didn't turn up, and she ended up being an hour and a half home, an hour and a half late home for that very reason. And that at this time of year, is going in the dark. She's a middle-aged lady, and she had to walk in the dark, and so that walk is quite a long way away from her because but there are two services serving that area: one Preston, one Stagecoach, and if you get the wrong one, it's a much longer walk. And the only one that turned up was the wrong one, so that meant an extra walk. I also have a sister who works as a peripatetic care assistant, and she quite often has to take taxis because the buses are just not working. She has to work sometimes at night, and this is a single woman walking on her own at night because the buses are just not there. And there are loads of other things like that. I find that to try to get to meetings now, and I absolutely guarantee that the buses are going to get me there. I'm finding I have to use taxis a lot. Most of the time, in fact, it's just impossible. I just cannot guarantee that I'm going to get to something on time because of you just don't know the bus is going to run or not. So I do really think that we need something like this. And I'm aware also that this will be going to the scrutiny committee in March. But I don't think we're actually detracting from what the scrutiny committee is likely to do. I think we're just anticipating it and concentrating our efforts to know exactly what direction we're going in. I know it has been suggested, because in this notice of motion, I do suggest that the county council was responsible for 40% increase in the school buses. That is slightly, I suppose you could call it poetic license, but the fact is, when the idea of the school buses, the funding of school buses went to the county's budget meeting in 2024, there was an opposition amendment tabled which suggested that there should be some level of subsidy to prevent this increase being put in. It was not accepted, it was defeated, and therefore, in that sense, the county council are responsible for the increase in the service in the fares on school buses, which have meant that an awful lot of school children are late to school and late back home as well, and the dark as well at this time of year. So it is just not very good at all. So I would commend the notice of motion as it's now amended, and ask all members of the council to support it. Thank you.
Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor McMahon, thank you. Do you wish to speak on it?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to say that I fully support Councillor Saxena's motion. It shouldn't be a pipe dream in 2025 to have a bus service that people in Preston can be proud of, that is safe, reliable and affordable. So anything that we can do in our current capacities as a district council through the various channels, or in the future as powers change, to bring that to the city as a reality, I fully support.
Thank you, Councillor McMahon. Any speakers? Any other speakers? Oh, hang on. Right, I've got 7 speakers, so I'll Councillor Derby first, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would say thank you to Councillor Saxena and to Councillor Duke for the work you've done in bringing this forward today. It really is very important. I relied on buses myself when I was growing up to get to and from school and then to get to and from work. It wasn't until quite late in my 20s that I finally learned to drive and was had a measure of independence away from that. And I know that there are so many people in my ward, but across the whole city, who rely on buses. They don't have any other option. They don't feel able to cycle, they're not able to, they don't have a car or what have you. And I know that there are people in my ward who are unable to hold down a job because they're not able to get to and from the city centre or to anywhere where there is economic activity. And so there is a real social cost and there's a real economic cost to us not having a truly functional public transport system in this city. So anything that we can do in this chamber to try and move things forward from the bus companies that we have, from anything that we're able to do as a council, anything we're able to encourage the county council to get involved with has got to be a positive. I won't add anything further to it, but thank you, and we will support this.
Councillor Thompson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I didn't actually put my hand up. I think it was Councillor Whittam on this side that was going to speak.
Thank you. Sit down. Councillor Whittam, please.
Not that there's much difference. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Where to start with this? First of all, it's very difficult to kind of find fault with much of what's been said from Councillor Saxena. However, accepting that we all want a good public transport system, and it shouldn't, you're quite right, Councillor, it should not be a pipe dream in 2025 that we don't have excellent public services. For me, personally, it matters little whether it's in private or public hands, provided it delivers the service that it's supposed to. That's kind of my principle. For well-being reasons, access to shop services, work, travel in general, it should be there. Question is, though, who's going to pay for it? That's the first question here. Who's going to pay for this? Because the reason that fares go up is because people are not using this service. We've come back past 2-3 buses today, 5 people on those buses. It isn't a surprise that a private organisation is putting fares up when nobody's using it because they have to pay for it. So somehow, this council, if it was going to go down this route, and it doesn't have the powers currently, if it's going to go down this route, it's going to have to find a way of paying for it. And the people of Preston are going to have to pay for that, and they are going to have to use it. Councillor, you mentioned the bee buses. Now, if social media is anything to go by, it's not the roaring success that this suggests it is. And £500,000 painting the buses yellow and putting bees on them is not going to cut the mustard if nobody's using it. Now, for me, this does not go anywhere near far enough, because what it doesn't do, it doesn't talk about the money. You guys must know, you're in power, you must know how much it will cost to run this service. Well, let's have it out on the table and let's share it with this chamber so that we can all make an informed decision on it. because writing letters to MPs and chief executives of Lancaster County Council is not going to make one blind bit of difference. So as it stands at the moment, I can't support it. I'm sorry. I agree with the principle of it, and I want a public service that we can be proud of in this city, but I can't support this because it didn't go far enough. So thank you.
Councillor Duke, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Just want to say thank you to Councillor Saxena for accepting my last minute amendments or opportunistic amendments. Over Christmas, I was up in Edinburgh and enjoyed the integrated tickets with one live bus and tram app, and you could just switch between the services and there was no hassle. Now, I have a 16-year-old with a hidden disability, is at Cardinal Newman College, and every single day she has a stagecoach bus pass. You know, it doesn't turn up, only comes every half an hour. So she's stuck there, quite often in pain and struggling and waiting for an hour, sometimes more, for the next bus to turn up, maybe not turn up, and can't get on Preston bus because she doesn't want to pay twice for a ticket that she's already got. So for me, it just makes absolute common sense. And especially if people are doing multiple bus journeys across the city, it's absolutely feels criminal to pay twice for the same journey when you're forced to go into the centre and out again to just get to where you want to go. Having said that, also in Edinburgh, they do have a daily cap on fares for the integrated tickets, and they do have free travel for school children, which gets around the school bus costs. But that's a decision by the Scottish Government, not ours. So it would be good to aspire to something better. And just to bring it more locally, Files Council have an integrated travel ticket. I think Rupert Swarbrick was going on about it in October time, and they can also use it on the Blackpool trams. So if they can get it in Filed, why can't we have it in Preston in terms of that? So I just wanted to say thank you very much. Also, I wanted to point out I haven't been demoted. When I was in Edinburgh, I also fell badly on the ice and took the front off my knee. So that's why I've asked to step at the side. So if I disappear off, it's because I'm in pain rather than being grumpy. So thank you very much, Councillor Saxena.
Councillor Brown, please.
Yeah, thank you. An excellent motion from Jonathan. Well done, Jonathan. And obviously a helpful amendment in this instance from the Lib Dems. So obviously we have a lot of unity within the chamber on this, which is very, very positive. But I think we've really got back to the root cause of the problem, which is obviously deregulation and privatisation policies that took place in the 1980s. I know this sounds ideological, but that is what has caused the misery that we have at the moment with bus services. Before deregulation and privatisation, councils made sure profits from popular bus routes were used to subsidise the commercially unprofitable but socially valuable routes. That doesn't happen now. Under the current privatised and deregulated system, private companies, with many of them foreign-owned, profit from popular routes and acts arrest. Local authorities left to pick up the pieces, paying private companies to run the socially valuable routes. And we've seen this with the Lancashire County Council because they basically just do not have the money to subsidise the keeping school fares at a decent level. So there was a 40% increase in 2023. And this has been accelerated by austerity. More than 1 in 4 bus routes in county and rural areas have vanished over the last decade, with passenger numbers dropping to a historic low. 70% of all buses in the UK are owned by just 5 bus companies. In effect, we've replaced a publicly owned monopoly for the good of the people with an oligopoly that exploits passengers at home and transfers profits overseas. But we do have nearly a dozen municipally owned bus companies across the UK in places like Blackpool. Local authority-run bus companies have a great track record, and they won the Bus Operator of the Year at the Bus Awards for the last 5 years between 2016 to 2021. Publicly owned bus companies can run the buses as a network. They also have an extra advantage that they can reinvest all their profit instead of handing some of it over to shareholders. This means they have extra cash to use to provide better bus services. As an example, Reading Buses has been able to invest an extra £3 million a year in its bus network because it doesn't need that money for shareholder dividends to extract the wealth away. The company uses the money to make sure people in Reading have a bus service from 6 AM to 11 PM. And public ownership of buses is also happening elsewhere too. In most German and Austrian cities, buses are run by local companies. And in Vienna, for example, passengers enjoy new buses and a comprehensive service. including a universal night bus service. And obviously, we've had many debates here about the protections women need in the nighttime economy. Having a nighttime and early morning bus service is something I think which should be very much welcomed by women in this community. So we have to get to the heart of the problem. The heart of the problem is that privatisation and deregulation policies that happened in the 80s, obviously. We've also seen the benefits of the B network under Andy Burnham by regulating the buses. The B network's first phase introduced 75 new or adjusted routes, night bus services, and more frequent operators. Punctuality was terrible at 69%. It rose to over 80%. And passengers have already felt the financial benefits. Average ticket prices have fallen by 50% under the £2 fare cap, which will remain in place throughout 2025. And a new structure, including hopper tickets, which I think is what Fiona's referring to, reduced weekly and monthly options and annual ticket instalments via credit unions take place as well. And from last month, there was contactless capping, which will ensure passengers pay the best daily or weekly fare across both bus and tram networks. So why on earth can't we have things like this in Preston? You know, for decades in our communities, and it's our diverse working class communities that rely on the bus services. We've had a dreadful bus service, which has been running the interests of profit, not people. So obviously, everything our administration does, and we're getting to a debate about banking soon and how it isn't working for our communities, and obviously don't expect much support with that. But everything we do as an administration is actually trying to challenge that. And the only way we can challenge it is to take advantages from the new Labour government to actually establish a company ourselves, potentially run by the City Council or in collaboration or with the County Council, and also lobby, especially through a devolved arrangement, that we actually have bus regulation. And even if we have both of those things, it's going to take years to actually get bus services back to where they could be. You know, in Europe, we've had the biggest imposition of free market economics, which our communities have suffered, and it's people in the less well-off communities in Preston who have suffered. So I'm delighted Councillor Saxena is taking this motion forward. And obviously, we will speak to the bus operators, and we might be able to, Jonathan with his charm, might be able to persuade them to behave in a better manner. However, if they don't do that, we need to explore what we can do as an authority, including ourselves getting back into the market, having a Preston bus that's owned by the people and running in the interest of the people. So I'm delighted to contribute to this debate. I'm delighted Jonathan's taken this forward, because for many residents, especially elderly and disabled in our less well-off communities, buses are a real lifeline for them, and their life chances really diminish when the service is that bad. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Henshaw, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just be really brief. I'm very happy to support this this motion by Jonathan. There's various references throughout the climate jury recommendations to an improved bus stops, improved bus services, and integrated bus service, and capped fares and reduced fares. Loads of recommendations from the jury. So we know the people of Preston want this as well. That's all. Thank you.
Councillor Jewell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Saxena, for accepting this, because the amendment that went beyond just deprived areas, because of course our public transport system should be about access and connectivity across the city. Indeed, I think the progress of our city is reflected by how many people actually use the buses rather than how many people drive Mercedes. In my own patch of Lear and Larches, there's 2 bus services, the 31 and the 20. I've had really productive discussions with Preston Bus around extending those bus services to certain areas across both Southwark and Lear. They're very much up for it, but they rely on Lancashire County Council to impose certain restrictions to take away obstructions. Okay, I understand that is progressing, but painfully slowly. Lancashire County Council are also responsible for cleaning bus shelters. This might sound like a really small thing, but are you more likely to take a bus if it's full of graffiti and looks grotty, or if it's clean and welcoming? Rhetorical question. I think you all know the answer to that. Small points make a big difference. Furthermore, it is the decision of the Conservative-run Lancashire County Council to cut back on certain bus route subsidies. And if we are really serious about the climate emergency, this Labour government perhaps might also consider about investment and an enabling investment of these private companies into, should I say, non-carbon buses, whether they be electric or hydrogen or whatever there might be. So what's the point of you rambling on up here, Mark? It's because it does come down to money, but until the local authorities, both Lancashire County Council and our government, actually help in that, you know, you can't just put all this at the door of the private companies at all. So, yeah, okay, this is about new powers that Labour have got. They want to do an investigation of it. Fair enough. We'll support it. But it would carry far more weight if Lancashire County Council, if the government were more prepared to invest in our public services. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Brooks, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a point here about the costs and your privatisation. And I just wanted to show this fact really. And the Stage Group published its interim results for half year to 28th of October 2023 on a total revenue of 773.2 million. They were up from 69.6 million in the previous comparable period. And that's the group recorded a total operating profit of 51.1 million. Now, this is the big issue, isn't it? It's the profits. So in the thing where people are expected to pay more, they're losing their jobs because they can't go to work. Some of them are then being ill because they can't get to the hospitals. They're missing hospital appointments, which cost huge amounts of money. We need to start looking about where these profits are going. Why aren't they investing? Why are we now having to go without buses? And I think it's a really important point, and it was actually Councillor Whittam that made me look and say, who's paying for it? Where is the money? Well, I think this is a lot of it. We are suffering because people are being greedy with the profits. Now, I'm not going to extortionate fees that the CEOs are getting and the rest of it, because I think the point's well made. The huge amount of profits are being made when people are struggling with cost of living and they can't get to work. So that's my little piece, and this is why it's so important to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Saxena, we've no more speakers. No, definitely. Councillor Green.
Why not? We're having a fun day, I guess. Yeah, obviously, I think we all agree bus is very important. It's basic sort of necessity in the city. I don't think some people might like where this is going to go. But obviously, our council, we've got the youth zone, other initiatives. Doing it ourselves has often been heard in the chamber. I think it was maybe sort of thought the odd time, well, we could always set up Preston City Council bus service, run it ourselves, do it how we want to do it sort of thing. Then we're not having to complain about other groups or not doing that job. You know, perhaps take the money from things like the Preston Bank or, you know, things like that. I'd throw that one in there, I guess. But yeah, I suppose food for thought. Why don't we do it ourselves? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Anyone else? Councillor Saxena, do you want to come back?
Thank you,
As
Mr.
the
Mayor.
mover of the motion with the addition from Councillor Duke.
Yeah. Right. There's not a lot to get back to, really. I mean, there was Councillor Whittam. I think you did use at one point the phrase public service. I think that is the key to the issue, ultimately, because it isn't a public service anymore. It's a private business. The problem, but back when I first started on the council, we still had our buses. I was actually a member of the transport committee for a while, but it was a public service and it was run as a public service. There were rival private companies who used to sit in the meeting and making notes to see what they could find out what we were doing. But in the end, it was a public service. The railways were a public service even before nationalisation. They were a public service, even though they were private. And that role of the railways as a private service, as a public service, only disappeared with the Beeching proposals, where it decided that the whole emphasis should be changed from public service to profitability. So, I mean, in the end, the advantage of it being a public service is that it benefits everybody. If it's run by as a private service, it tends to be the best paying routes that are retained, and that is the situation we're in at the moment. You don't get on the best paying routes like the ones to the hospital or the ones to Chorley, for instance. There's no problems with them. They're tripping up over each other. There's so many of them. Whereas on some of the more deprived areas and the areas which don't seem to pay so much, you're lucky to get a bus sometimes. So I think the whole role of buses needs to be examined, not as a profit, but as a private as a public service, service to the community. And again, Councillor Green came in at the end, but I don't think the idea is for Preston on its own to run these buses. If it's run according to the devolution proposals, it will be run by the Mayor of Lancashire, presumably, and that would mean it would be a Lancashire-wide function and not purely a Preston one. And in any case, with devolution coming up, this local authority is inevitably going to become bigger. So I don't think that simply to regard as Preston-wide is really realistic anymore. I don't think there was anything else I need to answer apart from that, so I'll leave it at that. Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Saxena. Anybody else got anything to say? Oh, anyway, the debate's over, I've been told. Can we go to the vote, please? All those in favour, please show. Thank you. All those against, please show. Excuse me, Councillor Potter. Yeah, sorry. Thank you. Any abstentions, please? Thank you. The motion is carried with the addition by Councillor Duke. Item 12 is the leader's report. Councillor Brown, do you wish to speak on the report, which is for noting only?
No, I do not, Mr. Mayor, but could I request when we have an adjournment of 5 minutes, because we just want to check one of the reports going forward with regards to homelessness, if that's possible. When we get to item number 16, before 16. Yeah.
Sorry, before we go under the line, okay, yeah. We'll consider it. Item 13 is special urgency decisions and details.
Yep, these late reports.
Office. Item 13 is special urgency decisions, and details of one of these was enclosed on the agenda. Another 3 have subsequently been published too, all of which are for information purposes. Can we please just note the information by a show of hands, please? All in favour? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Item 14, the next meeting of council is the budget meeting, which will take place at 2 p.m. on Thursday, 6th of March 2025 in the here. Thank you. Item 16 is exclusion of the press and public. Yeah, I have to read it out. We need to consider passing the following resolution: that the public be excluded from this meeting during consideration of the following items of business on the grounds that there is likely to be disclosure of exempt information which is described in the paragraphs of Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972, which is specified against the headings to the item, and that in all the circumstances of the case, the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing it. Are you all happy to agree the exemption and move to part B?